drivers.
Well, early on in the weekend after qualifying, expectations were high. It was a tremendous pole-setting time, a great first stint. How is the car right now after all its repair work?
It's good. I mean, we're out there. We've got a little bit of a right-hand down steering wheel issue, but nothing that's slowing us down. We're a little bit battered and bruised, but easily got the pace of the field and the DPs. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Most of these races go like this rather than the glamorous wins, but we're just going to keep digging and acting like we're racing up front. That's the only way to stay motivated. Jurg's just been on it all night. I had some fun out there, Dyson, trying to get some lap back. Thomas got us a few laps back there in the evening, and then it slowed down a little bit here. We haven't had as many yellows, but I have a lot of guests from iRise here, Emmett O'Keefe and Mitch Bishop. They've been bringing people over and keeping us motivated, and we're having fun. Hopefully we'll be back next year and we can run with these Ganassi guys for the win.
Now, there have been a lot of questions from fans. Why would Flying Lizard come in and do this race? What is it about the 24 that brings in the outside teams to participate?
It's a great race. I mean, you have so many different drivers and teams, and you really just want to be here in January. There's no sense sitting at home and watching on TV, and Seth and the Flying Lizards, when they do things, they do it all out. So come here, get a DP, and go for the win. I think we had the right package this year, but it didn't go our way, and we'll be back and we'll try it again.
Patrick Long, Flying Lizard, certainly did everything right, but just tough luck here at Daytona, Brian. So
another team that did everything right last year is Action Express. Joao Barbosa, you and Terry Borcheller shared that victory last year as the team in maiden voyage here into the Rolex 24 special stuff. This year, I know you guys are a little frustrated with the outright speed, but you're still hanging in there. Towards the end of this race, is that consistency going to pay off, or is it going to take a bullet at the end to get up to the front?
I mean, it's going to be really difficult. It's still a long way to go, but our car is definitely not the fastest car out there, but all the drivers and the crew have done a great job in the pit stop, so we've been able to hang in there for the whole 24 hours, so just waiting to gain back a little bit of the handling that we lost during the race as the race progresses. We'll try to adjust tire pressure and some little aero changes and see if that works better, but it's going to be a tough one.
I know you guys have some damage to the right rear spoiler, and I saw the team working over here trying to fabricate a piece to put on maybe during a full course caution. How much aerodynamic downforce do you think you lost with that right rear damage?
We lost quite a bit. The car is quite on the oversteer side now, so it's a handful to drive right now. We're going to see if we have. We're going to try to see if we have enough time to add a piece there, just to see if the car improves the handling for the end of the race.
Yeah, Lee, did you have a question for Joao?
Brian, just ask Joao about the cuffs on his trousers, on his driving suit there. He's a little embarrassed about it. It's not European style. It's more North American NASCAR style. See, he's got it tucked in there.
Lee wants to know about the fashion sense that you have, and you're a little upset about your driving suit here with the NASCAR cuffs on it. I didn't realize fashion was that important to you.
No, it's not. I just went with the flow. All the drivers got this new NASCAR style suit, so I'm trying to be part of the group.
Joao Barbosa, he actually told me off camera, guys, he wants to be just like Ricky Bobby.
He said, if my friends in Europe see these, they'll laugh at me.
Guys, when you talk about doing a little wicker bill and making a change, and you know how small those are, what about that big hunk missing? You got to know that car's going to be loose.
It doesn't look real stable.
No,
there.
it doesn't.
We saw the car go back up onto the banking there. It's really wobbling around, and we could see another piece of that bodywork fly with this much time left in the race.
And unfortunately, that would be not a good thing to have happen up on the banking, because that is still supplying a significant amount of downforce as it is. If you lost it all at once, it could be ugly.
Right aboard the 1 Series M Coupe BMW pace car, and the good sign is, look to the top, the lights are out. We're ready to go back racing. It's been an extraordinary amount of yellow flag periods here during the 2011 Rolex 24.
That's our 20th one.
Yeah.
Key for the drivers right now is to try and get those tires clean, get any of that debris. You see all the little marbles, as we call them, off the racing line. Easy to pick those up, particularly when you're on a red-hot tire. I mean, if you've got fresh tires on, it will not pick that rubble up and marbles up. But if you've got a hot racing tire on, like these guys have, who have not been in and done a tire change, then it's going to pick that up. You've got to clean them off, get the pressures up. So the pressure is on Joey Hand right now to get a good clean start. He's got a buffer there with the 2 car between he and Jamie McMurray when we see the green.
Romain Iannetta is the car immediately behind for Starworks, immediately behind Joey Hand. That separates he and his teammate Jamie McMurray. So no immediate threat from McMurray, but Jamie will get round that number 2 Ford-powered Riley very quickly. Green flag flies. We go back to racing with 3 hours, 13 minutes left here at the World Center of Racing.
Jamie McMurray made that easy. He goes around the outside for the lead.
looking for it, wide, too wide.
We've seen that before. It's so inviting. It's wide open down there in turn one, but there's no grip on the outside. Joey's a little bit more conservative, but he had the grip when he needed it.
That's optimistic, but I liked it.
Check out the 55. That is Mark Wilkins, the young Canadian driver. He's close enough to the front. If he can tag onto these Ganassi guys, he may be able to get a lap back. It is currently the 55 in 8th place, some 3 laps behind our race-leading Ganassi duo.
Yeah, they've had a few dramas, dropped a couple of laps late last night, but they've kept kicking it around here and getting those laps back. That's the great thing with this new system. We talked about it briefly. Under the yellow caution lap, when you get the lap wave by on the 3rd lap, you can then pit immediately and basically gain a lap on the leaders. So all of these teams that have been digging themselves a little bit of a hole, they've been able to regroup and stay in the game. It's a great new rule change.
It's kept this a very interesting race. It maybe would not have been that way otherwise.
Absolutely. And congratulations to Mark Wilkins, because what he's done, he's synonymous with AIM Autosport, the only Canadian Daytona prototype team in Grand Am. But what he's done is he's made himself a viable option to other teams. They've recognized his talent, like level 5. All right, you're not going to be with AIM Autosport at the 24. We'll take you. You did a great job last year when AIM decided to sit this one out. AIM have also sat out the Rolex 24 this year, and he gets to drive with a top-tier team. It's like Scott Tucker's organisation, so well done, young Mark Wilkins.
He likes this track too. He sat on the pole here at the summer race in 2008, but this is the car that I think Dorsey had the pace of everyone here this weekend. Pat Long a couple hours ago was running laps in the 140 range. We haven't seen the Ganassi cars dip in that mark for a long, long time, so this car really had the speed. Such a shame they had all that drama in the early going.
But Pat said it best, woulda, coulda, shoulda. You know, that car got taken out early. It's got more speed than any car in this field. There's no doubt about that.
The nice thing is it's very frustrating to be so many laps behind, but when you got a car that fast, you can just go after, be aggressive, take chances, look at your lap times, really just get the hammer down and have a lot of fun for the remaining hours of the race.
It's the stuff that makes heroes when you have a car under you like that, and you have to come from behind.
Things are a little more comfortable in GT, however. Spencer Pumpelly has a 1-lap lead in the 67 TRG car. This is it. He's getting up to speed. He's been in for probably about 7 or 8 laps now. So Spencer is in the groove. He himself is a Rolex 24 GT winner, and he's giving Kevin Buckler's group a very good chance to do it again. He's got a 1-lap buffer over former Asian Carrera Cup champ Tim Sugden, also BTCC star of years gone by. Here is the 48 of Timmy. And then behind him is another TRG car, the 66 of Dominic Farnbacher. And Dominic is 3 laps behind this 48. So this car right here is in a very comfortable position.
You can't emphasize enough how good a job Kevin Buckler does. I mean, it's just amazing that he can run a team of this magnitude, that many cars, and keep all the ducks in a row, if you will.
It really takes tremendous experience of running these multi-car efforts at an event like this. Just the logistics alone, then you've got all the personalities involved, and typically you're bringing in crew that you may not normally work with. You're kind of stretching your resources, and then you've got to get everyone to, gather that chemistry in the course of a race week. That is really tough to do.
24 drivers, 100 mechanics. Think about that just alone right there.
The difference between this car here and this car here, the 40, one's a Porsche, one's a Mazda, and there is a lap difference. Dominic Farnbacher to Charles Espenlaub. The 59 on the high side is Mark Lieb in the Brumos Porsche. And Mark is another, what is he? He's another 8 laps down on the 4th place car. And we highlighted those problems during nighttime hours for the Brumos Porsche. Mark Lieb was tearing this field apart when we went off the air last night. And that's one of the Salen's Mazdas. It comes back on. It's the 42 of Joe Nonamaker.
Should point out 1 lap around here is really nothing. That's nothing to worry about, because a flat tire is a lap around here if you get it in the wrong place on the racetrack. So, I mean, that's still a race going on.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is.
Listen to this Mazda scream. It's ear-piercing noise, but it's a great sound as well.
Heard it all night.
See how patient you have to be in terms of being off the throttle in these hairpin turns, particularly when the tires are maybe a little bit more worn, losing some grip. It's not an on-off switch. You just have to wait, let the car set, and then squeeze back on the power.
Considering the way the weather has been in the northern states and across the majority of the country, you could share a little sunshine and visit Florida. That's what Dempsey Racing is all about, and it's a great place to be right now. I want to give you a gentle reminder about the NASCAR Race Hub, weekdays on Speed, and you can catch it at the regular time slot of 7 p.m. Eastern. It's Monday through Thursday with host Steve Burns. Steve's really enjoying doing the show, and this week is a pretty special one too. Controversial driver and the man who's been in the middle of a storm over the past few years, Jeremy Mayfield, will be in the studio in Charlotte, North Carolina this coming Tuesday, along with Roush Fenway's David Reagan and Ford's Director of North American Motorsports, Jamie Allison. All three of those guests will be in the Charlotte studios. That is the NASCAR Race Hub, Monday through Thursday, right here on Speed. We are very proud each and every year to have drivers from various categories in the sport that we love so much, whether it be road race experts, sports car heroes, IndyCar, NASCAR, F1, whatever it may be. Here are some NASCAR notables and where they are placed. And here are our IndyCar fraternity. Graham Rahal, who hasn't done a huge workload in the 01, but he has done his bit. Obviously, the 01 is currently running in first place. Not sure how much time EJ Vizo's seen in the 2 either. It's been a bit of a rough go for the Starworks Ford.
Brian Shaw was just calling me on the radio at break there and saying that the 70 car is about to lose everything. They're trying to tape all this bodywork back together, but it's shedding its pieces as it goes. And he's got to be getting the D-cell fumes. When he gets off the throttle and those things burp back, that'll suck all that right inside there with him.
There's certainly no quit in the Speed Source team, but it is amazing to me that the aerodynamic drag that has to be on this car, when you look behind the passenger side door, I think I could literally crawl in that car through the gap that is there because of all the missing body work. Well, maybe I used to be able to crawl into it. These days, maybe not, but a lot of damage, but they're still on track, and off they go.
Go ahead, Brian. Take a ride.
Yeah, I'm not sure Brian's rear end would fit through.
He'd get most of the way in.
I said used to.
Did they complain about the fumes at all, Brian? On the
Nobody said anything about that yet, Dorsey. In fact, I guess it's got enough airflow through it that perhaps it's not drawing it back in.
Well, the reason why this team fights so hard, as you heard Brian mention, there is no quit with the Speed Source boys. Sylvain Tremblay and David Haskell and Marcus Shen, the entire team down there. They had a terrible time a couple of years ago with a cracked fuel cell after running over a curb, which really put paid to their efforts. They bounced back last year to win the race, and they will never lie down. They lost the 69 car during the nighttime hours last night. That will really frustrate them, so they're not going to give up if the 70 has a chance of finishing. Mark Blundell is the white car you see right there, the 23 United Autosports car for Mike Shank Racing. And he is holding off Christian Fittipaldi. This is the fight for third at the moment. We are hearing things about the GT class leading car. Jamie, update us.
Well, Lee, on the radio, Spencer Pumpelly behind the wheel of the number 67 right now. He's saying that it sounds like the car is just going to fall apart, but the team's reminding him it's at that stage of the race where the car is just starting to feel the stress of running for 21 hours. There's still only 3 hours left to go. It's still a lot of racing, still longer than a standard length of a race. But telling Spencer just to stay patient, the car's probably not going to just fall apart into pieces. It's just all of the stress that's going into it right now.
Dawes, is that a Monty Python moment? It's just a flesh wound?
Yeah. Tell him to take a look at the 70 when he goes by if he thinks his is falling apart. It's a minor flesh wound.
This is the stage of the race, particularly when you've got the lead. You start to hear all of these noises that you think, that's not normal. I haven't heard that one before. And you're trying to radio back to the crew and tell them how the car's doing. But Spencer's got a lot of experience here, and he's won this race before. So
these cars really take a beating, over the 24 hours. Even if they look on top cosmetically like they're in good shape, all of the bits and pieces of the drive line are just beat to death, and they're hanging on and throw everything away at the end of this race. You don't just barely use the body work or anything.
See Mark Goosens there making life easy for the sister Mike Shank Ford. That pass is not for position. Goosens is not on the same lap as Mark Blundell is. Keep in mind, for all of the enormous experience Mark Blundell has in Formula One and in IndyCar and in sports car, this celebrated driver has never raced at Daytona International Speedway. This is a highlight of his career.
It is, and look at this. Mark Blundell has a great wingman in Goose there. He's actually got his car between he and Christian Fittipaldi. That will frustrate Christian. If Mark Goosen's in the 60 machine, the purple car just going up onto the banking ahead of the 9 car continues to stop his attack. on Mark Blundell.
He said to me earlier in the weekend, I've always liked Michigan. You know, I did pretty well there back in the kart days. He said, but this place is something else.
Michigan's more like a road course when you race it, though, because you really have to use the brake and you have to get the car in the middle of the corner and use the throttle, pick up throttle. This racetrack, though, is just immense. And you come here, you got the infield to deal with. The banking here is just so much fun.
You've just joined us. Joey Hand leads the way over Jamie McMurray. Mark Blundell and Christian Fittipaldi. Top 4 cars are on the lead lap. And Nicholas Manassian for Krone Racing is in the top 5. We'll give you the GT update when we come back. Comparison to a year ago, we have been so fortunate and treated so well weather-wise for the 2011 Rolex 24 at Daytona. It was miserable weather last year, right from the very beginning when we had to spend 5 laps behind the safety car, the pace car, and all the way through to gloomy skies right to the very end. It's just been picture-perfect weather for this year's Rolex 24. Right aboard with race leader Joey Hand, and you would have to suggest that the man, the master, the 3-time Daytona prototype champion, Scott Pruitt, will be standing by to take over once Joey's done, to take it to the end.
I think that was the plan going in, talking to Joey earlier in the week, is that they thought that the rotation would work out this way, but certainly a lot of teams' rotation may have been affected by that fog that we had in the early hours of the morning, but cars are looking very strong. I mean, there's a couple of cars out there that are maybe a little bit quicker. The 10 car's been very fast, certainly the 45, but in terms of being in contention for the win, the Ganassi cars look a little bit quicker, Dorsey, than the 23 and the 9, and that's what I'm going to count here in the last hour or two.
Yeah, if it gets down to an outright race, these cars do look good. We were talking about that before, you know, about that stretched throttle cable in years past. That wouldn't have been a big problem to have a stretched throttle cable be off a little bit. But now you've got to be able to run those qualifying laps at the end of the race. And right now, the only cars that are running those kind of numbers on the board are these 2 Ganassi cars. Are both of them in the 42s, and we've seen them down in the 41s.
Margin between Hand and McMurray currently 9 seconds, first to second. Blundell a further 7 seconds back, and Christian Fittipaldi only 2 seconds behind, and another full course yellow.
Number 21. I only had 20 numbers down.
Okay, we're going to see the leaders come in here, because I think with this one, they should be able to just squeak it through, even if we were green on 2 more stops. They're getting a run of about 56 minutes. So by the time we complete, you see a piece of body work there that will cut a tire down really, really easily.
Oh, it's right where they're going to hit it, too.
Someone will hit it for sure.
Good signs here for the 54. It has just returned to pit lane. Let's get it to Jamie. Jamie?
Well, Lee, I'm down here with Jeffrey Earnhardt making his Grand Am debut with Rick Ware Racing. Jeffrey, I know you guys lost second gear early in the race. What has this experience been like so far?
It's been pretty wild. I gotta admit, you know, this is a whole other race in its own, and I've had a great time out here. It's been a little rough, but I'd definitely come back and do this any time. This has been a blast, and I think everybody on the team's had a great time, and hopefully we'll be back next year.
10 years ago, your grandfather stood on the podium here, Dale Earnhardt. Do you feel that legacy when you come and race here at Daytona?
Yeah, you know, this track's got a lot of history with my grandfather and my family, period, and you know, it's cool to come back here and race. You know, it's unfortunate we didn't quite get the finish he did, but you know, this is our first year. This as a team, this is our first time here, and you know, I gotta thank Fuel Doctor and Rick Ware Racing for giving me this opportunity, and you know, like I said, it's we're glad to be here today. That's the biggest thing. You know, our goal is to make it from green flag to the checkered, and you know, we gotta get a chance to make it to the checkered if we just nurse it around and make it to the end.
Even with the trials and tribulations of Daytona, you still see the smile on Jeffrey's face, guys. I think he'll be back.
The grandson of the late Dale Earnhardt, the son of former NASCAR driver Kerry Earnhardt. And that team needs to thank one guy who has led many laps here at Daytona International Speedway in sports car racing. That's Kevin Roush in GT competition from GAS Motorsports over on the West Coast. Kevin worked tirelessly with this team to get this car ready, and even did a little bit of driver coaching to get the boys up to speed, just to get them polished, ready for this big race.
Well, they've done a good job. Look at the car. It's not tore up like most of them have been that we see out there. So, and that's, you know, that's hard to do for a rookie team, for new guys, just to get through this deal without wrecking the car, without getting tore up in some kind of way. That's much harder than you think it would be. 5-driver lineup with Maurice Hull, Jeffrey Earnhardt, who we just heard from, Scott Munro, Doug Harrington, and Brett Sandberg, making up Rick Ware's initial race in the Rolex 24 at Daytona.
One thing to look at, you look at the clock at the top of the screen there, 2 hours, 52 minutes left to run. Now, what it will allow teams to do potentially is to put their final driver in. There's a maximum drive time for any driver in the event of 14 hours total for that one driver, but no more than 3.5 hours continuously. So it'd be a heck of a stint here to go from now until the end, but certainly drivers have done it in the past. And if you can eliminate that driver change, do it under yellow, there's always potential for a driver change to go awry, Dorsey, if you're doing it on the final stop or two. So let's see what happens.
It'd be under a 3-hour stint. And, you know, it's not really hot out there today, but that's still a long time in the car. I think the repaving of the racetrack makes that job a little bit easier than it would have been. You're not getting pummeled around on the bumps like you used to.
At the top of the field, of course, there is so much to play for with pit stops coming up with Joey Hand, Jamie McMurray, Blundell and Fittipaldi all on the lead lap. However, Nicholas Manassian is defending a 1-lap margin over Justin Wilson for a top 5 position. So watch for that number 6, Mike Shank Delara. It'll be looking for a move. It's the 3rd car in the line there. So they're looking to leapfrog and get back up into the top 5. Ricky Taylor in the 10 SunTrust car. There's a lot to play for there. So too for level 5, Mark Wilkins, Buddy Rice. There's people trying to leapfrog laps here to get themselves into a more prominent position.
And again, looking at the clock, this is the ideal time to split it. 56-minute session. You see the 6 cars stay out, the Ganassi cars are in.
What do we see here? What do we see here? Watch closely. The Ganassi boys go to work, and there is a driver change on the 0-2. So McMurray, that was a very short stint. It looks like it might be Scott Dixon. Brian.
Dixon climbing in the 0-2. Joey Hand will stay in the 0-1. Heard him talking to Timmy Keene just a little bit earlier. They said, can you do another stint? He said, I don't know, man. My right foot, it's starting to get burned a little bit. Then they asked him. He said, yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. Problems, though, on the way out. He hits the right front tire as he leaves the pit box. Dixon climbing in the 0-2. He'll take back off. And for the 9 car, this may be what they need. They wanted to stop under caution to work on that right rear bodywork to see if they can add some more downforce. Let's see if they'll get a chance to do it. No, they won't. The 9 back underway, still without their aerodynamic help.
Wow, that's a disaster right there. The 0-1 hitting that tire will get a penalty. We'll have to come back in and lose all that track position. It's still a good car, but that was a costly, costly error.
Costly error.
Talk about the fatigue factor, not only for the drivers, but also the crews.
And that crewman left that tire right there. Joey couldn't see it. You can't see across the top of those fenders. He had no idea that tire was there.
Hitting or running over pit equipment or exiting pit lane with pit equipment, including wheels, etc. That car will be assessed a pit lane violation and penalty. How it can go so wrong so quickly. We'll be back. Rolling at a slower pace, we are under our 21st full course caution of this year's Rolex 24 at Daytona. Weather-wise, it's been good. Everything was going to plan. However, the 0-1, we will see return to pit lane for a penalty after hitting the front right wheel that was just left there. Of course, with Joey Hand's seating position, he was unable to see that wheel. And this is the 66th, 3rd place in GT on pit road. Daytona prototypes cycle through to pit first, followed by GTs. On that 3rd lap around, anyone is allowed to pit and come back out and join the back. The Dominic Farnbacher service. Not sure if Dom got out of the car and there has been a driver change. No, that looks like Dominic's still under there. Yep. Very talented young driver, young German driver who has won the Rolex 24 in the GT class here before. Got a busy year of sports car racing as well. Here is the Auto House Flexbox 88. This is one of the Chevy Camaros in the field for the Florida-based team. You can see the quartet of drivers behind there. Jordan Taylor and Bill Lester will be the permanent drivers this year.
These guys have kept a pretty clean car throughout the day.
Yeah. SunTrust Delara on pit road. It has been a huge game of catch-up.
I think they're working on getting another lap by the timing of this pit stops. I'm sure Wayne Taylor, Simon Hodgson and the boys will be working that. 6 cars you talked about, Lee, stayed out. I think that'll have gained them a lap back on the leaders as well. This is really going to shuffle around here, particularly with the 0-1 situation. If they are going to have that serve, that penalty, it has to happen under green. They can't come in right now and serve that penalty. It has to be under green flag action.
And that penalty will be a stop and go plus a 30-second hold under green. That's a lot of racing turf for sure.
Remember the good scrap that's going on there between the 6 and the 76, between Justin Wilson and Nick Manassian. Ricky Taylor is also in that scrap. So they're all clawing as hard as they can to get those lost laps back and push their way into the top 5 overall. Brian.
Listening to Timmy Keene right now talking on the radio to Joey Hand, telling him he's going to have to come in and do that stop and hold for 30 seconds, and also telling him that Scott Dixon is saying on the radio, I will not pressure him on this restart. We'll let him lead back around to where he goes to pit in. We don't want to get mixed up that way. Of course, Timmy Keene telling the officials, we didn't hit a tire on the way out. I don't know what you're talking about. You know the game of poker they like to play down here at Ganassi.
Unfortunately, the pictures didn't lie. Down into turn 1, Joey Hand leads Scott Dixon. Oh, the Spirit of Daytona car runs wide.
Christian Fittipaldi had to lock it up. He saw a little bubble in front of him, and he locked it up at the same time, but released the brakes, so he shouldn't have flat spotted that tire.
Paul Edwards took the 9 to the outside on purpose, let these guys go. That was nice. He's way down in laps.
So Fittipaldi up into the top 3 now. Mark Blundell drops a position to 4th in that 23 car. Defending race winning car, the big number 9, with that V8 Porsche power plant in the back.
Remember, all of these guys are going to get elevated one position when Joey Hand has to make that pit stop.
Oh, trouble here. Autohouse Camaro is around backwards, and I don't think he was alone in that.
This is where it can get tricky because Joey needs to serve that penalty, but we see other action and get another yellow flag. It can really just kind of change things up really, really quickly because you got to wait for green.
That was GM factory driver and former overall race winner Johnny O'Connell behind the wheel of the Flexbox Camaro, trying to get it pointed in the right direction.
You know, Joey will be running as hard a possible lap as he can to try to get whatever positive he can when he comes in for this pit stop. 30 seconds is a long time at speed.
Ideally, you'd like your teammate, Scott Dixon, to just back up the whole field about 30 seconds to give you a buffer, but
that's not going to happen.
They want to win this race, and they know that one of their strongest competitors is that sister machine, the 01. So let's see what happens here.
Now Joey Hand dives to pit road. Scott Dixon, new race leader. This will feel like forever.
No servicing can be done on the car, and there you see the marshal there, Brian.
And the crew definitely telling him, Joey, all right, we got to stay on these tires. We can't service the car. Don't lock him up on the way in. Don't smoke him too much on the way out because we have to stay on him. From the seat, I know it feels like forever. Joey put his hands up going, come on, guys, let us go. I can tell you the stopwatch that the official's looking at, when it says 30 seconds, he will be released.
And it's plus the time on pit lane, so even though he had the lead, he lost 30 seconds in the stop there and about 25 seconds driving through pit lane. So the best part of a minute that Joey Hand will now be behind the leaders of this race. He just needs to stay smooth. There's 2 hours, 40 minutes left. Hopefully they can catch another yellow, Doss.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about at the break. He really needs a yellow now to get back in the hunt. I'm not going to say that won't happen with this much time in the race either.
Remember what happened here a year ago. The 01 was in control. It was in command. Justin Wilson was behind the wheel, went through the bus stop chicane, heard a loud bang, thought something broke on the car, brought it to pit lane. The number 9 Action Express car went by them, took the lead, and it stayed like that to the end. Again, this year, the 01 in the lead. And just a silly mistake on pit road, leaving the tire out there, and Joey Hand hit it. It's not his fault. He couldn't see. He did not know that that tire was there.
You know what they say about these 24-hour races? Expect the unexpected, because this race can throw you anything.
So Fittipaldi is elevated to second. Mark Blundell back into third, where he's been for quite some time. 1, 2, 3 right there, all on the lead lap, separated by just a second, with less than a regular Grand Am Rolex Series race to go. 2:40 left on the clock.
Not much less than a regular window, and anything can happen.
Look at Christian. He is racy. He's feeling it. He is in the groove, and he's pressuring Scott Dixon here.
He's seen victory lane before here back in 2004, so he's not running in the Daytona prototypes on a regular basis, but he's certainly one of the most experienced drivers in the field. with his career over the last few years here in the Grand Am Series.
They might have less downforce, Calvin, but with that much chunk missing off that back, it might be pretty fast in a straight line.
Yeah, and they've had plenty of grunt around the oval already. We've seen that in the early parts of the race before the Ganassi boys changed that top gear to give them a bit more top end, the higher gear ratio.
These first three cars, if you say they all look the same, they do. They are Riley chassis, built in Mooresville, North Carolina, here in the States. However, three different power plants. It's BMW leading V8, Porsche leading Ford.
Let's see if that wing does anything. You'd think you'd get some top end out of that.
The Ford cars have been certainly very competitive here today, but they have some new specs coming for the next round. GM have implemented their new specification engine for the 24-hour event. Talking to John Maddox, he said that he wasn't completely happy having enough simulation runs on the dyno to run 24-hour races. So they went back to last year's specs. So starting at the sprint races at Homestead, the Ford guys should have a bit more power, a bit more drivability. There's an individual butterfly system on each cylinder that really makes the engine work much more efficiently, just like the BMWs had last year.
How costly was that stop for Joey Hand? When he tripped the timing and scoring line, he dropped 52.5 seconds in 4th place. Great work from the Krone team to get Nick Manassian back on the lead lap. Last time by, he was 1:11 seconds behind this man here, Scott Dixon. It's all looking good. The 10, Ricky Taylor, trying to work his way back into the top 5 as well. Let's go to the SunTrust camp now with Brian.
All day long, the 10 car's been fighting back from adversity. Max, one of the things that you talked about was the Chevrolet power plant is good, but the brakes on this car phenomenal, and the ladder going. What kind of a car are you going to have to do battle with? You're going to have to fight hard to get those laps back and try to challenge for the win.
Yeah, it's been a very long night for us. We recovered many laps. We have a fast car, good engine. Our SunTrust Chevrolet is really, the ladder is really fast. So we want to go back in the lead lap and possibly try to shoot for a winner race.
Now you've got a championship in the Rolex Sports Car Series. Obviously you've won at this race as well. It comes back to it, and Ricky Taylor gets the car on the lead lap. How much do you risk to win this race? Do you risk it all to win the Rolex 24, or do you think championship?
This race is a championship.
You risk it all, guys. You heard it. The 10 gets back on the lead lap. Max the Axe, he's going for the win.
And knowing how passionate he is about the Italian-built Dallara chassis, he'll be a little frustrated because the CEO of Dallara, Andrea Pontremoli, has come all the way from Italy to watch this race and hopefully watch a Dallara go to victory lane. It's unlikely it'll happen, but we've still got 2.5 hours to go. Hey, Speed.com is the only place where Grand Am fans can reach into the race and ask the biggest drivers a question. Race viewers and Speed.com readers can submit questions to the drivers. Submit your email to askthedrivers@gmail.com or at Speed.com. Search word Rolex 24. It's all about two classes on the track at the same time, fighting for individual respective class honors, Daytona prototypes or DP, and Grand Touring or GT. One team, one car doing exceptionally well in the GT category is the 48, the Porsche GT3 for Paul Miller Racing. Let's hear from his son and one of the key drivers, Bryce.
Well, the team decided not to pit during that last round of pit stops. So, Bryce, you were down a lap. Now the car's back on the lead lap. What are the nerves like going into the final stint of the race?
I mean, everything's held up really well thus far. The crew's just prepared this car really solid. So we're trying to keep the pressure on here. The TRG car seems to be coming back to us a little bit in terms of pace. And
there's a problem right now. The car just went off track, so it looks like it's going to be coming into pit lane. Bryce, we'll talk to you soon.
I might have lost the splitter. It was broken before. It was gapped.
It's like delaminated, like it's come away at the bottom, so at speed that may separate and probably cause a huge vibration.
Yeah, it usually does. Had a whole radiator full of grass there. See what happens. Just too much speed, gets off on the outside, rides that out okay, but when you get a frontal shot of this, you'll see it's completely loaded, the radiator. There's what I was talking about, Calvin. You see the piece hanging down already before he goes off. We're delaminated. This should take care of it.
That's probably why he lost the downforce, Dorsey.
Yeah.
That probably came adrift, and then he didn't have the front downforce going through that high-speed kink. So it may not have been Tim Sugden's problem there in terms of driving.
Did a good job of, just keeping that situation under control.
Yeah.
Front wheels locked, then releases. locked and then released. Tim Sugden is enormously experienced in these cars. He would have done everything he possibly could to control that. So Sugden has a 2-lap buffer over Dominic Farnbacher. So if the Paul Miller Racing boys can service this quickly, assess the damage and service it and get it sent, all may not be lost.
We stopped that from being a lot worse than it could. It could have gotten much worse, especially at that part of the racetrack, because you are really hauling through there.
The British driver brings it to a stop.
Look at that, it's completely come adrift, Dorsey. That is not going to be an easy fix by any stretch.
Guys, you can see how messy the car is right now. They are going to do a driver change. Tim Sugden out. Brian Sellers is climbing behind the wheel. Right now, the crew's going ahead and doing the regular service. They're doing the Sunoco fuel, the new set of Continental tires. They're also cleaning the car up so that when they do have the time to fix this, they have everything clean. They do have the helicopter tape or racer's tape out right now. It looks like they might try and tape it up, but right now they're actually just, looks like they might try and pull it off. No tape coming over the wall right now. They are going to try and do this repair. As you mentioned, they have a little bit of a lead, but not a lot of a lead. So they are going to try and get this car back out on track as quickly as possible.
As the Miller boys go to work, here is the snapshot up front. It's unchanged 1, 2, 3, 4. Dixon, Fittipaldi in the 9, Mark Blundell. But the man in 4th place, Joey Hand, is flying. Last time round, a 141 versus a 144 that these lead 3 guys are in. And Joey Hand has brought that 52-second deficit down to 45. The race is on with 2:30 to go.
That is a fantastic time. 141.3 with a dirty racetrack. That's the qualifying speed, I guarantee you, and he's coming.
Yeah, Timmy Keane has just said, hit the go button, mate. You got to catch it up. You got to get back in the game. We had a mistake down here on pit lane. Let's get back with these leaders. There's still a long way to go. 2.5 hours. Don't count them out.
I tell you who is back in the game is Mark Blundell. Yeah, he's done the occasional FIA GT3 racing, a bit of fun in an Audi R8, but he is back in the game in top-level racing right here, right now. It's the white car, the 23, and the former F1 and IndyCar star is doing a super job.
Said yesterday, don't count these boys out. They know how to go fast, and they know when. When is now.
They have done a tremendous job. 3-car effort from Mike Shank Racing here, and Martin Brundle had a huge scare in the middle of the night up on the oval. He hit a huge piece of debris, totally tore off the right side of the bodywork, so they lost time fixing that. But they've come back, they've rebounded back, and they, like many other teams here, have used that new caution period strategy to try and get those laps back on the leaders, and they're right in the hunt.
Calvin, you were just talking about Tim Keane, talking to Joey Hand, saying hit the go button, go, 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 buddy. Well, Tim Keane just said over the radio, hey, Joey, you're ripping off great laps. If you keep up with this and these guys keep the pace that they're going, we're going to catch it before this stint is over.
Beautiful work.
We're about to find out what it means to tell Joey to hit the go button. When you tell him to go, buddy, get out of the way.
Well, for so long, Scott Pruitt has been the All-American hero of the Ganassi squad, hasn't he? Well, there's a new name there. It's Joey Hand, a young man, interestingly enough and coincidentally, from the same area of the country as Scott Pruitt, Sacramento, California. Nick Manassian still holds down 5th place to shine a bit of light on the Chrome team. But watch that 3rd car. Blundell is working a move on Fittipaldi.
Yeah, he's got the juices flowing right now. He's got the draft on Christian. Not quite close enough, but traffic could play a factor here. These guys are really going to start mixing it up. I'm surprised that Dixon not pulling away a little bit from these guys. The 02 car had a little bit more speed in an earlier run here today, but you get a different set of tires, different track conditions. The balance is so fine in terms of really having the setup that the driver likes.
And with Blundell pushing Christian Fittipaldi, I think that's why they're still with Dixon. These two guys are fighting really hard.
The best we've finished with at the end of a Rolex 24 in the Daytona prototype era, which is 2003 to now, is 4 cars on the lead lap. We've currently got 5. This is super.
Look at this, look at the traffic there, Dorsey. This is going to get hairy there.
They're going to split these guys if they can.
Dixon is under pressure. He gets by the Dempsey Racing Mazda first. Watch for Fittipaldi next, then Blundell.
And you really need those GT cars to be focused. They'll see one car, they think soon as he goes, I'll tuck back in. You got a train of 3 coming through. See the difference in speed there between the GT machines and the DPs up on the high banks. About 30 miles an hour top speed difference.
Chris, what do you have on Dixon?
I just checked in with Mike Hall about the pace compared to the 01 car, and he said, hey, this is the pace we can do right now. We're pushing as hard as we can, but as the track has come up to temperature in these warmer hours, it's really gotten a lot slicker out there, so we just aren't able to do those 41-second laps like we're seeing out of Joey Hand.
And the key there is that may be a telltale sign when we get to the final few laps of this race, because if the 01 can get back in the mix, it's all about having the strongest horse at the end, and right now the 01 has shown the most speed out there.
Running 2 seconds a lap faster than these top 3 cars consistently last 2 laps anyway.
While we enjoy this, I'll verbally update you on GT. Spencer Pumpelly for TRG has gapped Brian Sellers because that 48 car had to come to pit road with the damage. It's a 2-lap buffer now. Pumpelly over Sellers, and then a 1-lap margin between Sellers and Farnbacher, the top 3 in GT. We're going to take a break, but Bob and David will be back on the other side of this. Enjoy it. We have got a real race on our hands.
The difference, a shower, nice night's sleep, and a good meal will make. Hard to believe those two are mechanics, isn't it? We are back, deep breath. It's time to go racing for real after 22 hours or thereabouts here at Daytona. I'm Bob Varsha with David Hobbs, taking over from Lee Diffie, Calvin Fish, and Dorsey Schrader. Chris Neville and Justin Bell down to the pit lane, assuming the baton from Jamie Howe and Brian Till. It'll be all hands on deck in the final hour, but we are about an hour and 20 minutes from that point, and we have a great race in store. The entire complex and the complexion of this race changed up front in the last 20 minutes when Joey Hand came in to make a pit stop to position the team for the final blast to the checkered flag, and disaster struck. He hit a couple of his used tires on the way out of the pits. That incurred a penalty. And now he is about, well, he came back out about 55 seconds behind. He has winnowed that down to 38.6 seconds with lap after qualifying lap. The new man on this car trying to pull the team back after a mistake in the pits. Well, we can. Let's go down to the man who we believe will take over for the final stint in that car, now driven by Joey Hand. That is Scott Pruitt with Chris Neville.
Yeah, Scott Pruitt will be getting his helmet on here pretty soon, getting ready to get behind the wheel of the 01. Scott, right now you guys have about 2 hours and 20 minutes to make up that deficit. Is it good right now to push as hard as you can to make it up as quick as possible, or do you want to spread that out over the next 2 hours?
No, you go. You don't know what's going to happen as the race unfolds. We've been real careful with the car. We've been taking care of it. The car's been fast the whole time. Ganassi guys did a great job. We're happy with BMW. It's just one of those things. I didn't see the contact, but from a driver's perspective, it's really, you're jammed up behind the car in front of you. You're trying to get out. Again, I didn't see what took place. If we did it, then we deserve the penalty. It's unfortunate, but we'll come back.
From the driver's perspective, how difficult is it to see an object like that when the team is telling you, go, go, go?
It's tough. I mean, you got to imagine we've been running these cars, 22 hours, 21 and a half hours now. The windshields get beat up. They're really difficult to see out of. I mean, it's just one of those things. We'll live through it. We're going back racing. See if we can get a victory here.
Well, as it looks right now, they're going to close that gap probably within the next hour, hour and a half.
Well, I got to say that Scott Pruitt there is showing remarkable constraint and political correctness. I mean, it was a terrible mistake on the part of the mechanic. There's no two ways about it. The driver wouldn't be able to see that tyre lying on its side underneath that wheel arch. Wouldn't have a hope in heck. And of course, he's told by the other crewman to leave. And when you're told to go, you go. And you assume that everything is okay, that the fuel pump, the fuel pipe, for instance, is disconnected, the car's off the jack, and all those things. So very, very, very unfortunate, because the 01 has been slightly in the shadow of the 02 car pretty much all the race, except when, of course, Scott Pruitt did the first stint when he was right up there. Nevertheless, that was a devastating blow to the 01 car, and Joey Hand is doing a terrific job. He's 36 seconds behind now. He was 52. As he comes into that long stop and go and a 30-second hold. I mean, it just seemed like forever. It seemed like forever to me watching, level of what it must have felt like to him behind the wheel. So, very tough way to go. I can't believe either how Mark Blundell and Christian Fittipaldi, neither of whom have done much racing. Well, Mark Blundell, I don't know when he last raced. Both very successful drivers. But I mean, here we are with just 2 hours to go in a 24-hour race. They've been out there 22 hours, absolutely banging away, just like a couple of young kids. So really, really doing some great driving here. Very difficult conditions. conditions, a lot of traffic. The track's getting dirtier and dirtier. Here comes the 45 car making up ground, and of course, it's such a long way down, but that car has been so fast, doing a 41.9 on that last lap. That is the quickest lap we've seen for some time.
That's Jörg Bergmeister on pole in that 45 car for this race, but still 17 laps down, still driving hard, still hoping for a miracle.
Well, of course, you know, these races can sort of just change so quickly. As Calvin said just a few minutes ago, in 24-hour racing, expect the unexpected. And of course, you just never, ever know. So you can't ever say die. You've got to keep going. And even though he is 17 laps down, he's got to keep trying.
Fans of the old Kart Champ Car series are sensing deja vu right now. Christian Fittipaldi and Mark Blundell raced each other back in the 90s in that series. I had the privilege of calling a lot of their races. And now here they are again. And particular credit to Blundell. I think Christian's been doing a bit of racing in his native Brazil. Blundell, as you say, David, really hasn't done much of anything. By his own admission, came here a little overweight, a little out of shape. He has lost about 30 pounds to prepare for this drive. He would like to do more. This is really the beginning of a second stage of his career, if all goes well. And he is really showing that he has not lost any of his skill.
He certainly hasn't. And as you say, he's a little bit out of shape. And the fact is, it's pretty hot out there. It's very hot in these cars. The ambient temperature's up around about the 70 mark. The sun is shining right through that windshield, making a lot of internal heat in the car.
Oh, this is the 66 in the pit lane. Listen closely.
Sounds horrible, but then they always do sound pretty horrible when they're going slowly.
Couldn't tell. I don't think the engine is running. Oh, it is, but he hasn't got a gear.
It's not connected. Yeah, the engine's running, but it ain't.
He's got a gearbox full of neutrals, it sounds like.
It, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man. Some ups and downs for the TRG outfit. 5 cars, and boy, have they told a story in the last 24 hours. Let's go to Chris Neville now with Michael Shank, whose 3 cars are still all factors in this race.
Now, Mike Shank has definitely had his hands full this weekend, but Mike, the word from the team was for the 23 car to get a top 6, maybe a top 5, but right now you are in contention for a podium finish here. You guys have got to be pretty proud of that.
Oh, incredibly proud. Johnny Walker came on board with Zach Brown's United Auto Sports, and these guys are driving the wheels off this car, and this just comes from really, really hard work from all the guys on my side of the deal. And we lost a nose and a under tray last night, got at least 2 or 3 laps down, fought all that back, and we're still kind of in the hunt here, and it's a great, great feeling.
We've got a handful of cars that are in contention for the win and the podium. Who are you guys going to be putting in these final stints?
Brundle and Blundell are going to run the 2 final stints. Let the old guys get after it. They really got some gas left in the tank. It's amazing.
Well, you got to pull the F1 guys out for those last and very important laps.
Mark Goossens, very experienced sports car driver, making his way around in one of Michael Shank's cars. The 66 has made the TRG pits, and that doesn't look good. The clock is definitely working against that team here at Daytona. Back at Daytona, you ride with race leader, Indy 500 champion, and IndyCar champion Scott Dixon, one of a constellation of driving stars who came here to Daytona to be a part of the 49th running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. And right now, he is running up front for Chip Ganassi Racing with Felix Sabates.
He's built a couple of second gap between himself and the 9 car now of Christian Fittipaldi. It was hovering around the half-second mark. Scott Dixon's managed to put a bit of daylight between himself and his 2 pursuers, Christian Fittipaldi and Mark Blundell, who's actually another 1.5 seconds back from Christian. So the front race there was very, very frenetic for a few laps, but it seems to have just ironed out a little bit now. Meanwhile, Joey Hand is gradually catching up, but it's a pretty gradual process.
You're on board with Joey Hand now. Remember, he was set back by a pit penalty. Not his fault. He couldn't see the tires and wheels in the pit lane that he tagged on the way out of his pit stop. That meant he had to come in for a stop and go plus 30-second penalty, plus the length of the 45-mile-an-hour pit lane speed limit. So he is well back with a lot of work to do as the newest member of Chip Ganassi Racing here at Daytona. He wants to hold up team honor, prove he belongs. He told us that earlier in the weekend. He's doing a great job right now. We'll keep an eye on him. Right now, he's 35 seconds behind Dixon, with Christian Fittipaldi and Mark Blundell in between them. Now a bit further back, Bart Goossens is at the wheel of the car number 60 from Michael Shank Racing, the Crown Royal XR car. Chris Neville is in the pits with one of his co-drivers, Grand Am Rolex Series veteran Oz Negri.
Yeah, Oswaldo Negri has competed in every Rolex Series race since 2004 except for one. And Oz, you're still trying for that first Rolex watch, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen this weekend.
Unfortunately not. And, it's pretty frustrating. I think we had a pretty competitive car. We definitely could be running with the guys up front. Series of unfortunate events just took us out of contention. Some very aggressive driving from other guys, just cost us quite a lot of time in the pits. But, this is the 24-hour.
Now it looks like you're going to have to get back behind the wheel, and you look pretty drained, and it's warming up. How tough is that last hour or two in the car going to be?
It will be very tough, but, like I said, this is a 24-hour. You've got to do every minute that is available for you, and I'll be there.
Yeah, Andy's got to focus on the championship ahead. And where they're positioned, they should come out all right because quite a few cars in front of them aren't going to compete the full season.
Good luck to Oz, who, as Chris mentioned, has been doing this for a long time. Now, there's the 66 car. We saw it in the pit lane. It's no longer there. Justin Bell can update us.
Yeah, obviously, suddenly it came over the radio from Dominic that he had lost sort of some form of drive, and when they came in at first, they had drive shafts on the pit wall, and it does appear that it could be the diff. And as you know, it's very hard to diagnose that with the car static in the pits, so the call was made to take it back to the garage. I'm going to head over there. Obviously, TRG have this armada of cars here, and a lot of depth of talent and technical resources, but God, this race is so tough. Just when you think the end is in near, they go and move the goalpost another few miles away. So I'll give you an update when I know what's going on.
All right, thank you, Justin. Meanwhile, the team car, the 67, currently in the hands of Spencer Pompelli from Mason Neck, Virginia, is running at the head of the GT class by 2 laps.
Brian Sellers in the 48 car, who had that very unfortunate incident. The kink, the splitter had split right down the middle in the 48 car, and as you can see, it's not anything like as big as it should be. He got to the kink. Obviously, there was a lack of downforce. He slid off the road, went through the grass, and they came back and repaired it. I thought they'd have a new nose, quite frankly, but they didn't, and they had to take most of the splitter off and so he's obviously losing some effectiveness with that front end because there was a lot of undertray that went with it, and that's a very important part of the front end of these Porsches to help you with the downforce, and they've lost that. But he's still cranking out 53.1. Spencer just did a 52.5, so it's going to be hard for the 48 car to really go hard enough to try and pull back those 2 laps.
At the splitter's a little like an aerodynamic tray that sticks out over the front chin, if you will, in a race car, and helps provide front downforce. And with the departure of the 66, that moves the 40, Joe Foster. Currently at the wheel, up into the 3rd spot. Remember, these guys led the GT class from the middle of the night. Patrick Dempsey stood at the brink of perhaps a victory here at the Rolex 24 for his still fairly new team, created by himself and Joe Foster. But they had problems. One of their co-drivers spun, and by the time he could get going again, they were 4th in class and struggling to catch up. Now they are 3rd, and they are 3 laps down to class leader Pompelli.
They were pretty unlucky. They spun at turn 6, and then it stalled, and they had an issue with the battery, so they had the flat battery. They couldn't get the starter to work properly, and they had a clutch trouble. So it was a terrible combination for them. They towed it back, got it fixed up, but of course you lose quite a few laps in that. So to be where they are now is actually pretty good.
Now what have we got here? Scott Dixon with Christian Fittipaldi drawing ever closer. There's the 66. Will they work on it or leave it? It appears they will put it up on the jacks and go underneath. That's the TRG way. Back at Daytona coming up on 2 hours to go with the Rolex 24. Still plenty of time to check out all the extras at speed.com, including highlights from our extensive coverage, spotter's guide, driver video blogs, daily photo galleries, technical reviews, much more. Go to speed.com and search keyword Rolex 24. There you see the time remaining. On board with Scott Dixon, who has achieved so much in his career. His parents mortgaged their home to support his career as a young driver. He has made that look like a work of genius, a big investment on their part, and it has paid off.
Yeah, I was with Vern Schuppen, who was running a car for Scott in the Indy Lights. Gosh, way back when you and I were doing that sort of racing many years ago up in Detroit. And he said, I tell you, this Scott Dixon's the real thing. At that time, Scott Dixon was about 19. And I guess old Vern was right.
I should say, Vern would know. Winner of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, great Australian driver. This is the battle for second. Christian Fittipaldi in the 9, Mark Blundell in the 23. No change of position, but they remain close together, and now there's slower traffic ahead.
Yes, and of course it's timing and luck. You know, when you get that traffic and where you get it.
Now the man calling the shots for the 9 car is standing by with Chris Neville.
Yeah, Elton Sawyer's in charge of trying to get that repeat win down here. And Elton, that damage at the back end of the 9 car, is that holding you guys back from trying to really challenge the Ganassi team?
Well, Chris, it's definitely not helping you. The Ganassi cars are setting a pretty good pace right now. Chris is doing a great job, but we don't want to take the time under a green flag stop to fix the spoiler, but we do need some more downforce. But we still got 2 hours. We'll keep working on it.
Will Christian finish this out, or are you going to put Joao back behind the wheel?
No, Joao will finish.
Okay, and let's just turn over the wall here because we've got some parts that they're going to try and fix the back end of this car with. You can see they've got a little, kind of about a third of that spoiler sitting here, some bare bond. And if we get a yellow, the team is going to try and fix that spoiler because right now they just don't have the downforce that they need to really take it to the 02 car and potentially the 01.
Well, they've got some number crunching to do. Not only do they have to get the thing fixed, but they have to get it fixed in time for Joao Barbosa, a part of last year's winning driving team here at Daytona, to try to make up ground in that car.
But it is one of those things, you know, it's this double-edged sword. If you're losing, you know, 3/4 second a lap, and it's going to take you 30 seconds or 45 seconds to fix it, it's always a toss-up. And as you've been saying all the time, at this stage, you're going to watch the clock, and you've got to really work it out, backtrack where you think you're going to be. And as the time runs out, of course, all those quick fixes become less and less productive.
Note that bright green number 76. It's been a part of the action at the front for the last 22 hours. Nicolas Minassian of France, great driver, fun to talk to down in the pit lane. Just dazzled to be here at Daytona for the first time. They look like they had a shot at getting the win, but right now they are about to be lapped by the race leader, Scott Dixon.
I raced against Nicolas Minassian and, of course, Mark Brundle at the Revival, the Goodwood Revival last summer in the TT. And they seem to drive, Minassian in particular drove a Cobra, a 1960s Cobra. And I saw him from behind going through Ford water, and he certainly seemed to be working the wheel with a lot of verve.
That must have been a revelation for a guy like Minassian to drive one of Carroll Shelby's creations.
And Martin's car, what was Martin driving? A GTO, a very expensive piece of kit. But I think it broke fairly early on, but he was quick too.
250 GTO Ferrari?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh,
I think there's something like $40 million worth of cars taken to the grid in that Revival TT. I mean, they don't play around with chump change there.
Oh my. The knees knock at the thought. Let's get more on the 66 now, whether it'll get back in the race, whether it will be effective. Justin Bell.
Well, it will get back in the race, but it probably won't be effective. You can see under there they're actually changing the differential, but as one of the lead mechanics said to me, he said there's been so much carnage under there that all the under tray's gone anyway, so it's making it pretty accessible. They do this in about 45 minutes. They did a practice earlier in the week when they did it, and they did it when everything was hot, so they can do it in about 45 minutes. But look at what a disappointment. Dominic Farnbacher was so gutted that he kind of took off for the motorhome pretty much in tears, I think. So this team worked so hard, and Kevin Buckler's now on the left side. Lucas Laura's joined the sort of fray. A lot of onlookers. It's such a pity, isn't it? And what a tough race at this stage. And the car will be out there again, guys. But as you know, David and Bob, you know, the other horses have left the stable. This one is just about survival.
Boy, I said so many of these 24-hour races, and it quite honestly, from a driver's point of view, I know everybody wants to finish, and the teams are always saying, oh boy, we finished, you know, but quite frankly, I'm not really interested in finishing 144 laps behind. It just doesn't get me somehow.
Well, no, you want to win. You were a professional in those days, and surely each of the, 180, 190 drivers that came into this race, each had a different perspective, different expectation. Do you just want to finish? Do you just want to do a lap? Well, the pros want to win. We can hear from Juan Pablo Montoya now with Chris Neville.
Well, I'm working on that right now, Bob. Juan, can we have a couple words with you real quick? Hey, we saw that great battle with you and Joey Hand out on the racetrack. It was just a fantastic battle. That Krone car was really keeping you up. Was it a little bit difficult, though, after that pit stop to see the 0-1 kind of drive away?
It's what it is, you know. We're trying really hard. I think both cars are really competitive, you know. It's just a matter of time, we still got over 2 hours to go, so we'll see.
Is there any worry with the laps that Joey Hand is laying down right now, catching Scott Dixon?
No, you know what I mean? Right now, the way it is, he'll be pretty close at the end, we'll see.
Well, these guys have got their finger crossed. Juan grabbed a watch 2 or 3 years ago, and he'd like to have another.
That's Memo Rojas on the right, chatting with Juan Pablo Montoya. Right now, Joey Hand has gotten within 25 seconds of his teammate Scott Dixon on the race lead. Is there enough time for him to get that car back to the front and then put teammate Scott Pruitt in for the run to what may be his 9th victory here at Daytona? We'll be back.
Well, it is, and got a great starter here with Andy and the guys and the teammates with Kelly and Dale Jr., so they've been schooling me for a couple months now, and I think we're ready to race. 24 hours is a lot different than what we're used to, but I think we're up for it. It's a good race car, real good race car.
You look like a happy man, though. You've obviously had the time of your life out there.
I want to stay in there another stint. I was ready to go another one.
You know, he wants to win, wants to do well, and he asks a lot of the rest of the teammates. And that's the kind of guy you want to be with, a winner. So I think he's one of the toughest.
I think I'm through for the day.
Are you through forever, though, with sports car racing?
I don't know.
What about Le Mans?
These guys race up at Watkins Glen, I think, when the Cup cars are up there. I might have to go and practice a little bit.
Well, that was Dale Earnhardt. Of course, it was 10 years ago that he died on the last lap of the Daytona 500, just 2 weeks after competing here at the Rolex 24. And you just heard him say, well, I don't know if I'm going to do more road racing. He told me once he did want to go to the 24 hours of Le Mans. He did want to explore his massive talent to the nth degree. We'll talk about it all on The Day, a documentary of that black day in 2001 when Dale Earnhardt was killed. Remembering Dale. Look for it here on Speed, February 11th.
Well, we're on board the leader, and I have a feeling, Robert, that what you've been saying for the last few minutes to me may be true.
Well,
Scott
let's back
Dixon
up.
keeps on doing 44s and 43s. Here comes the car that's in second place who's been doing 42s, and I think Scott has been deliberately slowing Blundell and Christian Fittipaldi down a bit to let Joey Hand catch up. I really do. I wasn't thinking that to start with, but it's got to be the answer, because we got Jörg Bergmeister back in 11th spot, 17 laps down, doing quicker than Scott Dixon.
Which doesn't seem likely, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Well, this is the 9 car, Christian Fittipaldi.
And Joao Barbosa getting behind the wheel. The team is not going to address that right rear corner. Just 4 Continental tires, 24 gallons of Sunoco fuel, and a little driver change there, so they're really waiting for a caution until they can hopefully address that rear spoiler. We're going to get in here with Christian Fittipaldi really quick. He's already got his helmet off. Christian, that was a great run. Right now, you guys are still in contention for this win, but the handling of that car, you've lost about a third of that rear spoiler. Is it anything you can fight with again?